Hi there, and welcome this evening to my first live stream. It's a real pleasure to be here with you. For all those who are watching, for those of you, if you don't know me, my name is Colin, and I'm an intuitive counselor and a certified medical intuitive, and I'm here tonight to talk about some of the topics that are really meaningful to me. Hi, Jude. Nice to see you this evening for tuning in. It's great to have you. It's my first live stream, so I'll be learning as I go here. If anyone wants to be able to, we got Rachel. Hi, Rachel. Nice to see you as well. Walking to the park, keeping the baby happy. Congratulations on your baby, and I'm glad that you're here. I look forward to being able to hear from you. If anyone does want a reading while I am doing the show, you can email me at this email address, and I'll be able to see that during the show in order to tune in and get a sense of what's going on from there. And so the format for the show, I'm going to talk about the topic we have for this evening, which is how to stay connected in a disconnected world. And this is a topic that's really dear to my heart. It's one that has been a tremendous challenge for me in my lifetime, and it's one that has been really fruitful in terms of learning how to stay connected and stay into my heart in the world that we're living in. So I hope you enjoy the conversation this evening. I had a couple people write me with their name and age so that I could give them a reading, which I will do after the talk. And feel free to send in for that. And that was actually really helpful to get it beforehand because I was able to be in a really quiet place when I could do the readings, which was helpful. So let's get started on the talk. What does that mean to stay connected in a disconnected world? And I thought it helpful to begin this conversation by understanding what I mean by connected and what I mean by disconnected. And so what does that mean for connected, disconnected? I would call connected being in your integrity, being in your aliveness, being present, being connected to everything going on around you. When you're anxious or worried, when you're afraid, when you are angry to the point that you can't see clearly. Those are things that cause us to disconnect or to be non-present. And one of the ways that I like to look at being connected, it's to be in the fullness of our essence so that we're fully embodied with all of our being. And when we're in all of our being, we have all our clarity, we have all our capability, all our openness. Now, this is a challenge. I don't know about you, but I've had to really learn how to stay connected to myself in the world. And in fact, that's not something that we're born knowing how to do. Part of the journey of life is to learn how to stay connected regardless of what's going on around you. So if you've struggled with being connected, it's not that there's something wrong with you. It's that you're learning how to stay connected in a world where it's easy to get disconnected. So connected, being in your heart, being in your aliveness, being connected to what is. What does it mean to be disconnected? To me, being disconnected means to not to be able to see beyond your own suffering, not to be able to take in the things around you, not to be able to see perspectives other than your own, or to be disconnected to the fullness of your being. And so I like this example to describe connection. If this is you and this is the other person or other thing, this to me is connection. That's a deep connection between you and another person. And so there's you. This is you connected to your integrity. This is you disconnected from your integrity. This is the other person connected to their disconnected, the other person connected. And so the thing that we're longing for in relationships is to be connected so that we are in union or joining with each other. And this has such a wonderful feeling to it. I'm sure if you've ever experienced being in connection with someone, you know what this feels like. I love that it is like this hands of prayer position of this coming together. However, in my experience with life, often it seems to be a little bit more of a process like this, where we move outside of our integrity or either way, or we come towards, this person moves back, and then we abandon. And so these are the complex ways that we relate with one another in the world when we're moving towards connection with one another. And so I think it's helpful to look at how to stay connected by understanding the tendencies that we have. And so if this is you moving towards connection, there's either a tendency to move out of your integrity to try to meet the other person where they are. So here you are moving towards somebody, they are disconnected, they're suffering. You get here, doesn't feel good because you feel this other person being separated, and you go, oh, I must have to meet them where they are. And that's where you move out of your integrity. That's been my tendency in my lifetime, to move out of my integrity. And that's when you compromise yourself. That's when you agree to things that you would normally not agree to. It's where you're trying to create this sensation, but the strategy to create this sensation is to do this. And so in a way it feels like this, except for if you take the other person away, you're here. And this will feel like this, it won't feel like this. And so tendency number one is to move out of your integrity. Tendency number two is to disconnect from the situation altogether. So that would be you're moving towards the person, they stop, and you go, oh, this isn't going to work, forget about it. And this, I don't mean this as drawing a boundary. Oh, I'm not going to create with this possibility, I'm going to let it go. That's where you're like, oh, there's no point in this, what's the use? And you lose vitality in this expression when you move away from something. That's a destabilizing, devitalizing expression, to move away. And what's really interesting about this tendency is it mirrors this tendency. So for example, if you're moving towards somebody and they were here, you'd probably very easily be able to meet them here. This is a reaction to being in the presence of this, which is, I don't want to be here anymore, and moving away from it. And that's a really important concept in this trying to meet the world, is that, and I've been studying a gentleman named René Girard. He's a French literary, he's a literary critic, but he's really connected to philosophy. And in my understanding of his work, and the phrase that he uses, which is I love, because it's the first time I've actually seen someone describe what I experience energetically in connection with people, is that desire is mimetic. And what does that mean, desire is mimetic? It means we mirror in our desire. So as I go to move towards somebody, if this person is doing this, it's very tempting to mirror this on some level. And so what's really fascinating about learning to meet another person is not so much what they do, it's what you do in the presence of them. Some people, it's really easy to be connected. Some people, it's really easy to disconnect or to disconnect on some level. And that simply reveals you. And the way to stay connected in a disconnected world is to learn to do this regardless of your circumstance, to learn how to be in your integrity, to learn how to hold your center, to learn how to be in connection with yourself, even if you're in a world that's disconnected. And so the challenge in this is what I experienced, and this, boy, I tried this one really hard in my life, which is to, as I'm moving towards connection, and it's here, to try to get this person to come over. So it's like wanting this to happen, not feeling successful, choosing this, not feeling successful, choosing this, but devoting a tremendous amount of my strategy towards how do I get you to come and meet me. On one level, that's very noble. You know, I want to learn how to meet the person that is, or get the person who is disconnected to come and meet me. The challenge is, this strategy here is often because being here is not easy to do. Or what I experienced in myself is I'm not okay. Like when I'm here, this is not okay on some level. And so, moving to the strategy. Sorry, new to my thing, I just noticed my audio levels are a little bit high, so I'm just gonna turn them down for a second here. Let's see how that looks a little better there. So hopefully that, maybe YouTube autocorrects for that, we'll find out. So if it sounds fine for you, you can let me know in the comments that it's sounding good, and then we'll know. Okay, so tendency towards moving together. This person's here. Oh, I just wish how do I get this person to do that? And now that can help create creativity. I've gotten very good at explaining things or trying to convince people that they are here to come here. But the thing that I did not devote a lot of my time to is ask, where am I? Like, I'd way rather this happen than for me to move towards this. And some of the best learning I've done in my life has been where I was pretty certain I'm here, but really I'm here. And so when I'm like trying to get this person to come here, I'm not trying to do this. And this is where I think Gandhi was incredibly wise and said, be the change that you want to see in the world, or when a person changes themselves, the world around them changes, is recognizing that I need to move towards this midline. And so, which is to be in your integrity. And so how do you do that? Well, part of it is to start to recognize where is the tendency in your energy. When you're around somebody who's disconnected, do you find yourself trying to get them to connect, where it's not, oh, I see you're suffering and I'd love for you to be able to come and join me. How much is it, oh, you're messed up and I need you to be here so that you can be okay. There's a I'm not okay unless you're okay energy behind the trying to do this, or what's the use? I quit. I want to get out of here. That's the disconnecting strategy. So ask yourself, what's your tendency? Do you tend to move towards here? Do you tend to try to move towards the other person, to abandon yourself, or try to make them be like the peacekeeper but by abandoning yourself? Do you try to get them to come here, or do you just say, forget about it, I quit, I'm disconnecting from the situation? And so it's helpful to recognize that tendency. Congruency is one of my favorite words of this. Am I being sincere in what I feel? Am I expressing myself clearly? Am I in my clarity, in my power in this situation here? Now, I think one of the reasons that I'd actually, for me, the reason this is the most challenging reason for me to be in this place is that this doesn't feel, or this, I should say, doesn't feel like this. And when this has felt like this in my life, I'm in my integrity, the other person is disconnected or suffering, thinking that I've done something wrong, or I haven't done something right, or somehow it's not okay. And what I've learned through my process is that sometimes this is the best that you can do. You can't, this isn't possible. Because this is, to me, gets to one of the most fundamental components in this. And I've never really heard people talk about it in this way, but this is the thing that comes so clear to me. Are you putting your okayness in things that you have control over, or are you putting your okayness in things that you don't have control over? I don't have control over this. This is someone else's free will. This is what they choose. I do have control over this. Putting my energy into this, while I understand that would be really desirable, it's also not something that I have control over. I have influence, but not control. And so when you devote yourself to something that you don't have control over, that's a recipe for disaster. That's a recipe for disappointment. That's a recipe for upset. And so I understand that desire. I don't recommend that. So when we learn to do this, regardless of this, it's bringing your energy into the areas that you have control. And at best, sometimes this is what it's going to feel like. And if you're really connected to yourself, you're really connected in your heart, this hurts. My experience is that this hurts. I actually call this Christ's tears. When I first started to become aware that this was the alignment that was the best possible scenario, I got the image of Christ up on the cross, crying, saying, forgive them, they know not what they do. And specifically in that image, he's not crying because he's like, oh, you poor things, you've no idea what you're doing. It's like, oh, I'm connected in the presence of disconnection, and it hurts, and I'm allowing myself to express that. And so that's a really important component in this way of dealing with it, is that it's about discomfort of being in connection, or being in the pain of separation, as I would call this. Christ's tears, pain of separation. And I'll give you an example. When you walk down the street, let's say there's a homeless person there who is clearly suffering. Do you avert your eyes? Do you move towards them to do something? Do you take in the situation and ask, is there something for me to do here? Send them a prayer, talk to them, give them money, turn my eyes away, avert. I'm not saying there's a right or wrong strategy to take in that, but notice energetically what happens to you. And this to me is saying, I want to be present to what is. And that presence may be, I'm going to give something. That presence may be, I'm going to send a prayer. The presence may be, I'm going to stay in my energy because I'm not in a great enough place of clarity to be able to support this person. And so you can ask yourself, are you able to do this? And I've met very few people who are really good at this. That's a rare example. I don't know many role models in the world of people who stay in their open, compassionate heart and stay connected to what's going on without abandoning themselves or disconnecting from the situation. The best role model I have for that one is Marshall Rosenberg, who is the founder of nonviolent communication, and he had a profound ability to be able to stay in connection in that way. And so, how to stay connected in a disconnected world? Notice your tendency. Abandon, withdraw, try to get the other person to come and change. Notice if you can be here. And then if you are in this place, can you feel the suffering? Because here's the part, this is complex. Like, I had a teacher that was teaching me about the earth. And one day she said to me, like, how are you dealing with the terror of climate change? And I hadn't been dealing with the terror of climate change. I had just been, going about my life, being aware that it was there. And when she said that, I got connected. If this is climate change and this was me, and it suddenly pulled me there. And it was alarming. It was shocking to be in that place. And I'm really grateful that she said that, because she got me present to what is. And so in a way, a question you can ask yourself, do I want to stay connected in a disconnected world? That means being in all of your aliveness, which means sitting with the complexity of what is. So that's how we learn to do this. Now, the beauty in this is that it helps to inform you. It helps to evolve you. It's there to support you. When you're in the presence of this or in this or in this, it feels like the world is unjust or something is wrong, as opposed to seeing it as an invitation. And that's the model that I love. This is an invitation, because this reveals you. What's the use? Like, I had a tendency of doing this. As an empath, when you're really sensitive, if you're a sensitive person yourself, you'll probably feel that desire to be like, oh, how do I make everything feel okay? I can't seem to get this to happen, so maybe this is a better solution. And it's so tempting to do that, but that reveals you. It revealed me. Oh, I have a tendency to abandon myself to try to find ease in the connection with the people around me. Or I have a tendency to withdraw from the world when things aren't going the way that I would like. And either of those is suffering. That reveals the suffering in you. And the opportunity is for you to strengthen your system so that regardless the energy around, you can be in your integrity. And now this may be really boundaried. Like, I'm not going to co-create with you. I'm not interested in a conversation. I'm drawing boundaries. I'm taking space. This doesn't mean that you have to, abandon yourself or you have to compromise yourself in some way. This is just, I want to be in connection with that. And so that's the challenge. How's that going for you guys? If anyone is on the stream and they want to share a question of a circumstance of how to do this, or because this is complicated. The part of the work I do in counseling with people is to help those navigate, what does this look like? And every circumstance is different. There isn't a clear best or right way to come and meet someone in this place. It's not like an obvious pathway, and it is complex. It is. It does really require an opening of your heart. That's another way that you can tell you're here. You'll feel it. There's an emotionality to it. There is a feeling. The more I do work on myself, the more I feel alive in my heart. It's a double-edged sword because I feel more. I like the phrase that, if you want to improve your sense of smell, you're not going to just smell the roses more, you're also going to smell the crap more as well. So when you want to open your heart more, you're going to feel more of the pain and suffering in the world, as well as the delightful things that are happening in the world. So anyhow, that's my talk on how to stay connected in a disconnected world. Learn to notice the tendencies in your energy. Try to come here. And if this is happening, do not see that as a failure or defeat. Sometimes that is the best we can do as a human being, and not choosing to separate or to be mimetic or to mirror that is powerful. And being able to do that skillfully and successfully in the world is a tremendous gift if you can do that. And it takes a lot of work and strengthening to do so. At least that has been my experience. So, okay, I'm going to just take a look and see if anyone's written in for a reading. And I don't see anyone who has yet so far. So I'm going to go over the 2 readings that I did for tonight, and these are great because they're a good example to talk about some of the challenges that we all face as human beings, and that I see through the intuitive counsel work that I do with people. When I have done group workshops, one of the things that I often hear is seeing other people work through their things has been really helpful for them, because we all suffer from similar things. There's very rarely is there a situation that's unique. They can be particular from one person to another. You may have more of one thing than another than someone else, but we all share in challenges. So the first one is someone initials J and S. And so when I tuned into JS, right away what I got was a heaviness in the area of the heart and the chest. It was like a weight sensation. I saw you looking down. It had an introspective quality, like reflective, thinking, looking into. But the thing that's to me that's key in that there's a quality of defeat to it, like I failed somehow. The phrase that I got for you was unprocessed grief. I put here, it feels like you need to let yourself be down or grieve something. And that's a really important concept. And one of the things that I see often is that when something tragic happens or something does not go the way that we would like, trying to put a shine on it or find the cherry in the situation, to me, is not necessarily the healthiest way to deal with it. Sometimes when we feel like we have failed or haven't succeeded at something, it's important to let yourself feel down. That is appropriate. It's like if I failed, it's like, I got to make it look all good or shiny. That's not necessarily meeting the energetic needs of the circumstance in your life. So if this is true for you, JS, what I'm saying, what I really crave in this is to let yourself feel down or grieve. And now there's often I experience a tremendous fear around doing that. It's like, if I let myself feel down, will I crash? Will I always be down? Will I always be depressed? Will it take me over? I had that exact one too. One of my early intuitive counseling sessions with someone else, they're like, oh, you're afraid to let the river start to flow because you think it will never stop. And that was absolutely true. And of course it will. There's an energetic charge to disappointment, and that charge needs to go somewhere. And if you don't give it the space to express itself, it's not going to go anywhere. It's gonna get stuck. It's gonna repeat. And sometimes that's actually where illness comes from, is stuck energy that hasn't had the opportunity to express itself. And so I encourage you, JS, to let yourself grieve. I wrote here, this is not a defeat. It's an acknowledgement. And just acknowledging this is how I feel. This is what's happened. I wrote here, there's a false belief in people that often that acknowledging or grieving will cause people to get stuck or collapse. Think of it as a necessary transition. This happened, so this is an appropriate response. And so anyhow, I hope that's helpful or valuable, JS, for you, and that resonates in what is going on. And if that relates to something in you, do you feel down in something, especially in transitions, like whether you're changing a career, ending a relationship, it's okay to have that down feeling for a bit. That's absolutely appropriate. So there's that. The next one is initials CD. And it took me a bit, CD, to tune into your system. And sometimes that's when it's a quality of presence that's not familiar to me, or if it's one that really wants to be looked at deeply. And this felt to me a little bit more like wanting to be looked at deeply in the reading that I got. Right away, I got a feeling of anxiety or alarm in your system. So instead of like, oh, everything's good, it's like there's an element of tension, of uprising. There was a lot of tension across your shoulders and upper back. I got a feeling like a hypertension, and I don't mean high blood pressure. I just mean like tense where you can't release, like you can't relax. And then the key to me that I was seeing in this quality of tension is that it makes it really hard for you to be present to what's going on. People may talk to you And you may only hear a few of the things that they're saying or some of the things, but not all of it. Your ability to be open and receptive and receive and interact and converse feels like it's compromised because of the tension that you're carrying. And that's not something wrong with you. That's something that I think would really benefit from being addressed, to have it looked at, to say, you know, how do I soften this pattern within myself? I definitely got that there was something going on in your stomach or digestive tract. The energetic feeling of the stomach. Stomach is how we digest things or how we process things. And for you, what I got was a feeling of regret. I heard the phrase, should I have? Like, should I have done this? Should I have done that? So it's almost like there's reflecting on the choices that you've made in your life up to this point. And are those choices resonating? Do they really, do you feel proud of that? Or are you concerned that you may have made a wrong choice in some way, shape, or form? And so the phrase I wrote here, it feels like there's a need for you to take stock of your life up to this point, or to reconcile. And that's something that we all need to do in our lives. We'll move along with momentum and habit and busyness. And then every now and then we'll get to these moments where that momentum or habit or busyness isn't serving, and it's really vital or important to slow down, stop, take stock. And not to say, what did I do wrong or did I screw this up? To say, oh, I can keep doing things the way that I'm doing them, and if it serves, then so I shall. Or this isn't really working for me, and I'd like to do something different here. And that's important to do. And sometimes it's hard to take stock if you feel as though you've made a mistake or you failed. And I'm not saying that you've made choices that are totally meeting your needs, but when you see something as a mistake or a failure, that's a very difficult energy to process. That's a heavy energy to it. And so I don't encourage taking that approach, but reconciling. No, you know what? I feel like in that situation I abandoned myself, or I feel like in that situation I didn't honor what was really valuable to me. And taking note of that, okay, so that's something I need to do, or to find compassion. But I see that I was scared and I didn't know what else to do. So taking stock or reconciling requires a compassionate lens. And you'll know if you're doing that well because it will feel better. It won't feel so heavy or dense in what's going on. I put here, put past regrets to bed. Find compassion for your decision. Yeah, and I like that phrase for you. This is CD. I came up with what needs to be put to rest. This energy feels like it has been held for a long time. The length of time may correspond to the degree of tears that need to be shed. So sometimes when I tune into somebody, I can feel the tears that are backed up or held in you. And so CS, if that feels true for you, I would let the tears come out, and not to get stuck in it or to wallow, but to let that energy move. If there's any feelings of regret or whatever is going on there. And you know, if this is I made a poor choice, I moved on, it's quick and easy to move on. If this is something that you've been wondering about for some time, it may take time for that to unravel. So don't use the length of time of letting go as a measure of whether or not you're able to, or if you made a mistake. Just you tell me the time that you need to come out of me, and then do it that way. I put here, ours is not to question, but instead to allow and express the held energy. Give it time. You can do this. And then mourn. I got a flower remedy for that. If you're familiar with the Bach flower remedies, there's a bunch of different flower remedies. This one reminded me of gorse, which is about having a deep, abiding faith or having hope when there's a setback in life and somehow. So gorse, you would take a couple drops of that in the water, in your water that you're drinking, or under your tongue a couple times a day, just to try to maintain a feeling of faith or hope if you feel any setbacks. So those are the two readings that I had for this evening. I'm just going to check one more time, see if anyone else has written in. Oh, I do see one here. It is easier if you do. This is RD, and you've given me the year of your birth. Let me see if I can do that math quickly here. Hold on. just going to write this down to see. Hold on, I just have to calculate what the age would be. Because sometimes online it's hard to think quickly. Okay, got your age there. Okay, so let me just tune back in. You were asking if I did babies. I don't know, I've never done that before. I'm willing to try, but let's do you first here. So just give me a second here. So, RD. There's a really nice feeling of calm in your heart, which feels really good to me. There is some anxiety in your stomach. That feels to me like a very normal sensation, like, questioning, am I doing the right thing? Am I making the right choices? And that's especially as we that there's baby there. That's an understandable expression of being in that place of having to make decisions where the impact is greater than just yourself. You're now caring for somebody. And so there's an unsettledness, but at the same time, I do feel a settledness in your heart in that. And what that sensation in the heart is telling me is trust that. Trust yourself. Say, like, part of the work I think of being a mother is to say, what do I feel is the best choice? If you feel an arising and you feel that warmth, or you feel that it feels like this, trust that. You're the channel in this situation. You gave me your name and age, and then I'm channeling what I'm feeling in your investments. You're the channel as mother and steward to the family. And so you're gonna get information differently than if you were a lone person and you weren't responsible for someone else. That's something that I wish I had been told before I opened my first yoga studio. I didn't realize that as a business owner, the responsibility of caring for a community was going to give me a different quality of clarity than when I was just a yoga teacher teaching at another person's studio. There's a different level of responsibility, and so we receive in different ways. And so there's that feeling of trusting in your heart. You got a bit of burden energy up on your shoulders. It's like you're carrying a weight, and I would call that second guessing or doubt for yourself. And I don't know that serves. I don't know that you need to second guess or doubt yourself so much. This would be an issue of self-esteem. I trust the information that comes to me and moving forward. And sometimes that self-esteem can be because, well, when I do this, it doesn't feel like this. It feels like this. Or I'm trying to do this. You feel like you may have a tendency to be this person as well. And so if that's true and that's resonating for you, I trust myself. It's about learning to cultivate a feeling of being settled regardless of your circumstance. So that goes back to that point I made earlier about investing your energy in places where you don't have control, as opposed to places that you do have control. So you don't have control over how the world around you is going to react or respond. You have influence, but you do have control over yourself. And so I reside in the clarity of what's coming through me, and I allow myself to be in the discomfort of the pain of separation, and to notice your tendency to want to abandon yourself when you're around that. So I hope that resonates on some level. I'm going to just take a look at baby here as well. Give me 1 second, and I've never done that. Hold on. Give me a sec here and see what we got. Yeah, the only thing I get with your daughter is just picking up on that energy in your mid upper back behind the heart, that sort of burden or like hypertensive energy. It's almost like what it felt like when I tuned into baby was, she's just an antenna, and she's picking up what's going on in you. So when you're feeling any anxiety or tension in yourself, she's picking up on that, and she doesn't know what to do with it. It's not like this, her system is like, oh, things are not okay. It's like, I'm just aware that's there and it's amplifying. And that's not to put any pressure on you as a parent. We are all doing the best we can. We will all make tragic mistakes, and we will all do wonderful things. So my point is not that you're doing anything wrong. It's more an awareness that when I'm feeling anxious like that, my little one feels it. How can I find more ease in myself? And notice what I just did there. I took a deep breath, and that was a way to me to try to shift my energy of what I'm feeling in you and that tension in your back. So see that as an opportunity. I mean, that's one of the graces of children, is they invite us to be the best versions of ourselves. And so it's not, you're doing something wrong. It's like, oh, wow. And that you are capable of it. I am capable of noticing when I'm feeling anxious or unsettled, and I trust and I feel more settled. And that's going to help with the stomach anxiety sensations, that sort of curling or tightness in your stomach, because that'll bring a settledness. So I hope that resonates for you, in that. And it looks like I've gotten one more. And I do have one more. So I'm going to do that one. This is AD. Just give me a sec. For those of you who don't know what I'm doing, likely you do, because that's probably how you got it. The practice of medical intuition is using somebody's first and last name and their age to tune into their system. I actually wonder if we all have this capacity. I've taught other people to do this, and when I've gotten groups of people doing this, it's remarkable the congruency or the similarities in people's readings that they've gotten for people. So it may be something that we're all able to do. It's something that I've invested a lot of time in, and that I have a propensity or tendency towards. And so it's a really helpful way of doing readings, because I don't have a bias, especially when it's somebody that I just don't know. The only thing I can share is what's coming to me intuitively, and learning to discern between what are my thoughts and what are my interference, and then what's really going on with that other person. And so let me just go to AD. A lot of stuff in your throat. There's like a closed sensation in that area. I would almost give that a solemn flavor. There's a bit of weight in the area of your heart as well too. I would be tempted to say you're not using your voice in the world. It feels like keeping it in. Like this feels stuck instead. Like our voice is meant to be our voice is meant to be expressed in the world. Me doing this show with you here is an expression of me using my voice in the world. Just as it may be, you may need things to share. And now some of us have a lot to share. I'd be one of those. And some of us have, subtle things to share, maybe not as frequently. But when there's a need to express or to share, there's something that's holding back. It feels as though there is grief in the holding back, unprocessed grief or pain in that's preventing. And I can feel that and the weight in there. And so to me, what I get in that is I really encourage you to feel into your heart and breathe. Feels like you have a little bit of a sticky tendency to, when you feel the emotion, to hold on to it or clamp down onto it. Sometimes when we feel upset, there's a comfort in upset. It's like a familiar, it's like there's a solace that can be achieved in connecting with the pain that you feel, but it's not meant to be held on to. It's meant to move. It's meant to flow. It's meant to express itself or move through your system. And so that's it. Letting yourself feel and breathe. This is cool. I haven't done live on Livestream, but I can feel you connecting to what I'm talking about, and it's starting to shift. And you may notice a greater ease in your breathing when you let yourself feel that. There feels like a penance quality, like I have to give penance, or like there's a belief that suffering is somehow required or noble. And there's challenge in life, no doubt, but it's not necessarily noble to suffer. It's noble to be in the presence of suffering, but not necessarily identifying with this. This is about being in the presence of suffering. This isn't mean that, I'm so good if I'm feeling suffering. It's like, I'm just present, and being present means I feel the suffering. And so there's nothing, noble in that. And that sort of solemn feeling in that is this feels like there's a belief in penance. So if that's true for you, I would advise to, what would I advise? To let yourself feel that pain that you're feeling in your chest, and to invite lightness, that there is an opportunity to experience lightness and more lightness in life. It's okay to be happy. It's okay to feel good. It's okay to feel the pain that you're feeling. It's almost like what I want you to be is more dynamic in the breadth of experiences you can feel. It's like you're really good at these experiences, not as good at these experiences. I'm good with all experiences. I'm good with challenging, dense, difficult. I'm good with delightful, joyful, fun, easygoing. I'm good with all of it. And so I allow myself to be with all those things, and to not think of the challenge with this to be a sign of something wrong with you, but it's unfamiliar. Like I've heard the phrase before that humans have a higher pain tolerance than they have of pleasure tolerance. They can take more pain than they can take pleasure. And I understand that experience. And so pleasure tolerance, just like you can develop a greater pain tolerance, you can develop a greater pleasure tolerance. And that's just when things start going good, notice if you feel any resistance. Often the saboteur will show up in that place or in that state. So, that's, let's see, is there anything else in there? No, that feels complete. I see you nodding your head in that. So I hope this has been helpful. I'm just going to check and see if anyone else has a desire for reading. There is a delay on YouTube. I think it's about 30 seconds or so. So when you send something in, it'll take a little bit of time. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have questions, if I did a reading for you tonight and you'd like some clarity, please feel free to write me, email me. And if I can expand on that, I'd be more than happy to do so. If that sounds like something, someone that may be interested in having this done, hopefully this is a valid way to do it. Anyhow, I hope you all have a really wonderful evening, and thank you so much for tuning in. Sending all my love.